Yeah. I did learn how to
You look weird, Now it's a full time. It used to just be when you saw down.
Yeah.
Then put it on, just put it right down.
It shouldn't fall on the floor. I thank you, Mike.
It better not be. Actually, crap. Land, everything. But I tried to. It's like.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special open meeting of Osoyoos Town Council. I will call the meeting to order and ask council that the special open meeting of January the 16th, 2024, the agenda be approved. Could I have two? Councillor King, Councillor Potterica, all in favor. And now, before we do the presentations, I need a motion that council move for the special open meeting of January the 16th, 2024. Council suspend Rule 18.1 of the Council Procedure Bylaw, number 1367, 2020, and to limit delegations to the pre-registered speakers to present information or ask questions for a maximum of 3 minutes. Could I have a motion for that? Councillor Chong, Councillor Potterica, all in favor. Thank you very much. Well, I will read a statement from the chair. I want to welcome members of the community who are present in the Sonora Center gym and those who are viewing the meeting on YouTube and Zoom. At the Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024 regular open meeting, Council for the Town of Osoyoos rescinded the adoption of the 2024 operating budget and the 2024-2028 5-year financial plan and returned the bylaw to third reading. This special open meeting is convened to allow the public to make representation to Council or ask questions with respect to the Town of Osoyoos 2024 operating budget and 2024 to 2028 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 1386, 2023. For those people who are speaking tonight, it is important that remarks be limited to this topic, the 2024 operating budget and the 5-year financial plan. We expect the tone and conduct of the meeting to be respectful to all those present and particularly to whoever is speaking. Disrespectful, discriminatory, defamatory conduct or conduct that is intimidating, bullying, or harassing will not be tolerated. Yelling, chanting, cheering, or causing a disturbance in the chamber or public gallery will not be permitted. So we will now have some remarks from me as the mayor and the other councillors. So I will start. We openly acknowledge the community's frustration and anger with the 2024 operating budget and 5-year financial plan. The process to arrive at this budget, though well-intentioned and data-driven, did not align with the community's expectation and capacity to finance a solution. We also acknowledge that we could have done a better job at communicating the decisions and the reasons for the tax increases. Council and administration have all read the 46 submissions which have been included as part of this agenda package. We also have a speakers list tonight of 21 people, and we will allow each of them to speak at the microphone for 3 minutes. Please be ready, in line, and step forward to the microphone when it is your turn. To be fair to all the speakers, there will be a timer showing the amount of time left, and know that the microphone will be turned off after 3 minutes. We appreciate not only those who have written to us and those who wish to speak in front of a large crowd, but also those who have contacted us over the past month and offered comments and thoughtful suggestions. Our focus tonight is to listen, to understand the concerns and take notes. Our CAO, Rod Risling, has prepared a presentation for us based on the questions that have been submitted. Some of you may see this as a repeat of information that you already knew, but many people have asked to be better educated on budget issues, and so this will be a review. We will, through further meetings and dialogue with the community, we will be able to answer more questions. We will not have time tonight to answer all the questions since some are complicated and require specific information. I have been on town council for 12 years, and during that time, I have read many reports and documents, asked questions, attended numerous meetings and workshops. As a member of council, I have relied on town administration for direction on adapting to current information, legislative changes, emergency management priorities, such as the 2021 pandemic, and legal requirements as necessary. It continues to be a steep but interesting learning curve. At the end of our meeting tonight, we will look at next steps. We will ask administration to address additional questions we have heard and provide answers and more information on the budget to the public. We also plan to review the budget at a future public meeting and will ask our residents to submit questions that still need clarification. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to some of the councillors to speak. Councillor Chong, would you like to start?
Thank you. Our namesake is fairly straightforward. Canada's warmest welcome. I didn't know what it meant until we started living here, and I didn't know how deeply it ran until I started giving back. Throughout the last few months, I hold on tight to those three words, despite the division and negativity. At the end of the day, all messaging, whether it's hateful or supportive, I believe comes from the same place. We all love Osoyoos, and we all want to help. We don't help by dividing. This is not an attack on any individual or group. To me, it's never been us versus you, but us versus the problem. Frankly, we seem to have two very big problems. First is a word we've heard hundreds of times at this point, infrastructure. I don't care to point fingers or cast blame because ultimately speaking, our wells don't care who you are, who you vote for, or how long you've lived here for. They will still degrade. Our most recent report shows that well number 3, which has historically been one of our best wells, has had a 493% increase in manganese levels since 2017. We're also seeing higher levels of total organic carbons, which break down in our pipes into compounds that are known to cause cancer. I spent countless hours poring over these reports, studies, and data sets. I am no expert and never claimed to be one. Being a water technician or engineer wasn't a prerequisite when running for municipal government. But what I have to offer the community is my degree in medical cell biology and health sciences and my postgraduate degree. I may not know how to fix a water main break, but what I have learned is how to speed read and critically appraise and digest information, which leads to our second problem, misinformation. We live in a time of strong government distrust, but I never expected it to affect us as a community. Our staff are your neighbors. My fellow councillors are members of this community, making sure you have food, making sure you had an education, volunteering to make sure events are successful. We make the best decisions with the best information we are provided. We should have done a better job in communicating that to you. Tonight is about listening to each other so that together we can rebuild this two-way road of communication. Through this, we can peel back the layers of misinformation that seems to have rooted. As a public servant, I'm here to serve each and every one of you. Tonight marks a turning point in Osoyoos history. Let's step forward with unity, respect, and positivity.
Councillor Poderica.
Your Worship, we are Canada's warmest welcome, and this past few months have been quite challenging, emotional, and filled with frustration and anger. We've seen behavior and actions in this community that reflect poorly on our community and our reputation as a whole. It's caused hurt. It's caused hurt residents, business owners, community leaders, and visitors, and misinformation and personal attacks have spread like wildfire in our community. We are at a very important moment in our town's history. Like many other communities across the country, we are only now beginning to realize the significant infrastructure deficit that we have. And we are facing as much of the original infrastructure is now aging past its expected life expectancy and requires significant investment and rehabilitation. That, along with regulatory changes, growing service demands from residents, economic uncertainty, and a growing population all put significant pressure on how we can deliver to meet expectation and deliver to maintain vital services. This isn't unique to our community. It's impacting everyone around us and at different moments in their own histories. Locally, we are challenged with a failing water and wastewater system. While built to serve a growing community, these critical pieces of infrastructure can no longer keep up or maintain the quality, quantity, and treatment requirements now and for the future. Failing to invest immediately in replacement will only make the problem much worse. We can't pretend the problem is going to go away. And while funding participation from the provincial and federal government goes a long way to help support much needed infrastructure, the funds are limited, restrictive, and in high demand. This past year, council has been successful, including securing $9 million towards phase 1 of our future water treatment plant. And we've made the province well aware that future grant funding is greatly needed and appreciated towards future growth and critical needs. As we all know, costs have increased dramatically, especially in the past few years. And while some believe borrowing is the solution to reduce the impact on tax rates, current market conditions have made this a significant challenge at current rates. We're also challenged by being one of the heaviest water users per capita in the country, being well over double the Canadian national average and almost 4 times the Canadian average during peak demand in the summer. While this region has provided us many natural benefits and beauties, it also provides us with a headache in terms of our water treatment. Manganese and other minerals and the byproducts created by our treatment with our current water supply are expensive to treat, service, and deliver. They also present health concerns. And our most recent water report presented last week indicates significant reductions in water quality from some of our largest and previous best performing well locations. Council can only act on the best information provided to them, ask the best questions, and dedicate the right resources to maintain and fix our necessary water and wastewater systems. We have a role to lead and to provide the best outcome possible with the information that we have and that we ask for. Ignoring the issues and their costs isn't going to make our problems go away. It won't make them any cheaper, and it won't solve the problem we currently face any faster. Council has a role to provide the direction. We need to learn from the past, and we need to plan now and into the future. Council has placed this incredible importance of strategic priorities to provide the services you need, the delivery of long overdue capital expenditures, and to invest in much needed infrastructure to building the community that we're proud to call home. We are all humans here to make this community a better place for all. As an elected councillor, it has been my intention since first placing my name on the ballot to make the community I've called home for 35 years better than when I first took office. This involves making the best decisions, not always the most popular ones. At the end of the day, as the dust settles, we know that this will always be Canada's warmest welcome, welcoming residents and visitors alike with open arms, open hearts, and open minds. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor King.
First of all, I'd just like to thank everybody here for coming out tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully, a lot of your questions will be answered by the presentation that's going to come forward. I'm not going to say a long speech because I'm sure you don't want to hear politicians just yap away. You want answers. Thank you.
Councillor Appleby.
Good evening, everyone. Probably you wonder, half of you at least, wonder what a water counselor is. I represent, along with Claude, about 500 properties outside the town of Osoyoos on the west side, from the border to the head of the lake. We receive our water through the town's system. We pay good money, and sometimes more than the local citizens for that water. And so if you don't see me voting on fire trucks or whatever the case may be, it's because my status is limited to water. Thank you.
Councillor Moreira.
Maybe try going closer. Let's do it again. Try.
Try it again.
I'm here to listen to what you have to say. Thank you.
So our next presentation is an administrative presentation from our CAO, Rod Risling. He will have slides and he will speak and hopefully answer many of the questions that you have compiled and sent to us. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello? 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 Is it on? Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to provide a general overview of the budgeting process and then provide responses to the most commonly received questions to date. At some point, Your Worship, I'm going to provide a general overview of budgeting and then provide responses to the most commonly asked questions to date. At some point in the near future, administration is planning to provide more information on the budget to the public, as well as addressing the questions submitted which will not be able to be addressed today. I'm going to cover a lot of material which has previously been presented to council, as there appears to be a lot of misunderstanding, and therefore will attempt to provide some clarity to those in attendance today. The municipal budget is designed to pay for the services and infrastructure residents, businesses, and residents and visitors rely on. Within the property tax bill, there are multiple components. Some are controlled by the town, such as the municipal line. Others, where there is some control, that being things like the RCMP. Council can request additional services, meaning additional RCMP staff, but the costs attributable to a staff member are outside their control. And there are things that the town has no control over, such as the school portion, where the province simply gives us a bill, and we must collect on their behalf and submit the funds back to them. The 2024 figures shown in this slide were those that council previously approved. In effect, if all the other components come in exactly the same as what they were last year, the overall property tax percentage increase previously approved was 13.6%. Over the next few months, these entities will provide us with their bills, and this chart will be filled out. It is important to note that the monthly increase amount is based on a typical home assessed at $720,500 for the 2023 tax year. Throughout the presentation and in other publicly made information, this is what was and is used. Homes that have a higher assessed value will realize the same percentage increase, so that the dollar amount will be higher. Those with a lower value will see a lower dollar number, but the same percentage. Our current practice is to also collect the user fees as part of the property tax notice. As you have heard, this is where the majority of the previously approved increases were. Including utility fees as part of the property tax bill is something that will change fairly soon. Over the next few months, administration will be working to bill separately for utilities. No decisions have been made as far as a rate structure that would accompany the installation of the water meters, nor how often the billing will occur, meaning monthly, bi-monthly, or even quarterly. In addition, no research or decisions have been made on the rate structure, meaning will it be a fixed cost per month versus what will be a variable rate based on usage. All these decisions have yet to be made. From a utility bill perspective, the increase is a flat amount regardless of the assessed value of your home. So back to the municipal budget. Municipal council is the governing body. They set the strategic direction, the bylaws, policies, and the budget. Administration provides information and recommendations to ensure that council is informed so that they can make ultimately the best decision that's right for the community. Administration's role is then to take the council decision and put them into action. Even if administration does not agree what council directs or approves, that is what we are to do. I often hear that the mayor makes the decisions on what happens or what gets approved in the budget and other things. This is not correct. The mayor has one vote. The mayor has the exact same powers as any councillor. Any decision requires the majority of council. In most cases, that means 3 members of council must have said yes. In the case of water issues, the water councillors also have a vote. The budget process did not start on August 15th when council provided the general direction of the budget, or when the public hearing was held on September 12th. It started over a year ago. Throughout the year, various topics were presented to council. Council established a council priorities chart and infrastructure strategy, and they reviewed various reports done by professionals on the state of our infrastructure, including water and sewer. Governing a multi-million-dollar corporation is complex, and there are many pressures. Council has spent hundreds of hours reviewing and discussing material, and ultimately, based on the information provided and their discussions with the public, they make a decision on what is in the best interest of all. But again, it is the majority of council that forms a decision, not any one councillor or the mayor. There are many budget challenges. As mentioned earlier, a municipality is a very complex business and in essence has many sub-businesses and services that need to be considered. Every single hour, every single day, people use or depend on these services. Although an expected, rather routine function, like grass cutting, appears simple, it involves many other things, like human resources to hire the staff, finance to pay the staff, procurement to purchase the lawnmower, vehicle and trailer for the lawnmower, insurance, mechanic to maintain and repair the equipment, purchase of fuel and other equipment maintenance requirements, training, OH&S equipment, janitorial services to clean the shop where the staff work, cleaning supplies, etc. When one looks at the partial list of town tasks on the slide, each one of these items requires assistance of other areas or departments to complete the job. As a result, the overall budget process from an administrative perspective is complex. Delivering on these foundational services is the job of administration. Administration puts together budgets that in effect address all these nuances to ensure the public ultimately receives a service that is expected. There are several challenges embedded in the budgeting process. Both residents and even staff struggle with wanting more services and providing a higher level of service. The reality is that we simply cannot afford to do all things to all people. To put the financial picture into context, a 1% municipal property tax increase equates to about $32,000. Considering the size of the operation and the multitude of services provided, $32,000 does not equate to a significant amount of service level change or product. To put this into perspective, $32,000 pays to replace only 2.5 streetlights, of which we have about 700, or 7 park benches, or repaving 200 feet of residential street, 130 feet of sidewalk, or 9 public garbage cans. Some other challenges we have is general inflation. Just like we all have experienced within our households, inflation has been a significant issue over the last couple of years. Household costs like food, clothing, etc. have increased. As a municipality, we are no different. The cost for the goods that town purchases have also gone up. Unfortunately, the cost of most of the capital expenditures has increased significantly more than most household items. In most cases, projects are 50 to 100% more than estimated. The town is not alone in seeing these increases. Many municipalities have even stopped some projects where possible due to their unbudgeted cost escalations. Our aging infrastructure is an issue, especially considering that we do not have adequate reserves in place to address. Reserves are funding that is available to repair or replace larger expenses like roads or water mains. A town's budgeted reserves could be compared to RRSPs. We are all told from a young age to start putting money away for retirement. If you do, you will likely be in a fairly reasonable financial position when you retire. If you start saving at the age of 50, you in effect need to save significantly more, as you missed out on compound interest. In effect, the town is in a similar situation to a person that did not invest in RRSPs. Legislation changes create additional pressures on the town and our taxpayers. Some recent and or proposed changes that will ultimately cost millions of dollars to address are not budgeted for and include emergency management. Legislation is changing, which will ultimately improve a municipality's and a region's preparation and ultimately handling of an emergency, like a fire or flood, but it will require an investment up front. We also had the recent water quality standards change, which fueled the requirement for a water plant, which will cost millions. And the recent changes to the land use zoning requirements. In essence, the province is dictating that municipalities must adjust their zoning bylaws to accommodate higher densities. For example, a parcel zoned single family, 1 dwelling unit, will now be changed to allow a duplex, and larger single family lots can be converted to even more units. Although this creates more opportunities for housing to address the town's and provincial shortage, it places significant hardship on infrastructure. Water and sewer pipes are designed for specific densities. If those densities increase, the pipe capacity will not accommodate the increased flows, and a town will have to incur the vast majority of the cost to accommodate. The legislation change will result in redoing our water and sewer master plans. In addition, the cost attributable to replacing lines, which we incorporated into 2024 rates, will need to increase once we understand the total impact of this legislative change. The cost will likely be more significant on the sewer side, as our plan to repair most of our lines was to use a recoating application within the existing line, which was about half the cost of replacement. But again, more research is required, which will likely need to be done over the next couple of years. Balancing the need to keep the community attractive from a tourism perspective versus basic necessities is difficult. Tourism creates businesses, which creates jobs for our local families, which keeps schools open, etc., etc. Completely disregarding improvements or assets that help make us attractive from a tourism perspective is not a long-term solution. The other positive to having these additional features is that residents get to utilize them all year as well. The fact that our census population is about 5,500, but our population swells to 2 to 4 times that during the summer, creates significant challenges on not only our regular services like increased garbage collection, washroom cleaning, etc., but also on our water and sewer systems. We are not the same as a typical municipality. Staff vacancies. We're no different than our local businesses. It is difficult to fill vacant positions, and some of the town's positions over the last couple summers were not filled due to no applicants. In addition, the market is very competitive for skilled technical professionals. Filling these positions is becoming increasingly difficult. Having an inviting community is something that will assist in recruiting staff to the community. Capitalizing on grant opportunities is an important piece of the overall strategy. If grants can pay for 50 or maybe even 70% of a project, it means we have an amenity that we can all enjoy for a relatively modest investment. The unfortunate part of grants is that some tax dollars are required. Having reserve funding available is therefore important. When we apply for a grant, we do not know if we will be successful or to what amount of funding we would be granted. In addition, when grant funding is awarded, we need to proceed regardless of what the amount is. If we say no, it damages our reputation and negatively impacts future applications. Also, most grants require asset management plans or other studies such as an active transportation plan or a housing needs assessment or something else. Therefore, we must invest in these plans or studies to be able to qualify when the opportunities present themselves. Communications is difficult. The budget process is complex and includes a lot of information, most of which was debated or presented to council over the past year. The budget was when the rubber hits the road, and many residents do not focus or become knowledgeable on the topic until they see a fee or a tax increase. This can and has resulted in inaccurate information being spread throughout their community. All municipalities struggle with this issue. Ours is no different, and is compounded in that we do not have the capacity to do things from a communications perspective that most, if not all, larger organizations have. This inaccurate social media information or partial truths has had a ripple effect of damaging the town's reputation and ultimately can damage our economic driver, tourism, and or the attraction of new residents, some of which may be required for jobs of local businesses or the town, and ultimately the backbone of every community business investment. What did council approve within the general operating budget in October? To maintain the existing service levels and to pay our regular bills just like any other household, an increase of $3.84 per month was approved. Administration goes through the budget, adjusts for things like inflationary increases. This was kept lower as we utilized some grant funding to keep this in line with CPI. It is important to note that the monthly increase amounts is based on a typical home, again assessed at $720,000 in the 2023 tax year. Communication support was also approved. This, in essence, could help with things like the budget communications and improving our website and or helping with grant applications. The impact to a typical home would have been $2.05 per month. Many residents have indicated that there was not adequate communications to inform them of the budget pressures and the actual approved budget. This position would assist with the communications. However, many do not want to pay the associated increase. The fleet, which includes things like vehicles, backhoes, fire trucks, and lawnmowers. These pieces of equipment need to replace as they age. The existing practice was to replace items as required, which resulted in budget fluctuations. Proposed was a set amount to set up, which would enable a predictable funding source to replace the fleet based on the most economical way possible. Although this appears to be a budget increase, it in effect is leveling out the cost attributable to the various pieces of equipment. It will also enable a more strategic approach to replacing and purchasing vehicles. For example, is it more cost-effective to trade in vehicles more regularly or potentially lease? Having secured funding provides this flexibility and, in the end, more cost-effective management of the fleet. The resulting increase would have been $11.89 per month. Good financial management, as well as an opportunity to qualify for future grants, asset management plans are required. Knowing what we own, the condition thereof, the cost to replace is important for not only a household, but the municipality as well. In 2021, 90% of the asset management plans for BC municipalities were completed and or in progress. Obviously, we were in the minority. However, we have made inroads with the completion of fleet, water, and sewer plans. Budgeted and or in progress are transportation, which includes roads, sidewalks, storm sewers, and will be completed in about 15 months. Most of our buildings are expected to be completed by July, and a lot of our recreation facilities, parks, trails, etc., also by midsummer. The only outstanding plan not budgeted for is the agricultural irrigation water system, which we hope to address over the next couple of years. We are not certain of the amount required to help offset the infrastructure deficit for the remaining inventories. However, we do know the additional funding will be required. Starting to build a reserve to address the repairs and replace as required was started last year and was planned to continue this year. The sooner funding is in place, the sooner we can start planning for road repaving, trail repaving, and a bunch of other things. Last year, again, was the first year that the town started this investment and was termed the Sustainability Fund. The resulting increase would have been $6.34 per month. The Public Service Accounting Board instituted a new accounting practice, which in effect means municipalities are to set up reserves to address the removal and cleanup of a site once the building has outlived its purpose and needs to be demolished. Although there are no penalties for not complying with this standard at this time, it is the best practice and sound financial management. This was similar to asset management plans. There were and are no fines for not doing them, but getting grants, if they're not in place, is nearly impossible. If we would have had asset management plans and implemented water conservation plans, the town could potentially already have a water treatment plant that was partially funded through grants. Putting funding towards this standard will position us well, not only from a financial sustainability perspective, but it will likely become a grant requirement, much like asset management plans. We want to ensure we do not make the same mistake again. Over the next year, the town will determine what the requirement is and will need to build the fund. The increase attributable to starting this fund was to be $5.12 per month. The total of these increases equated to about $29.24 per month to that average home. Within the preliminary budget discussions and during, council made several cuts to what was recommended by administration. These cuts included the following. Additional funding was requested for our long-term sustainability for our capital replacement requirements. This reduction totaled $19.44 a month. To offset some of the extraordinary inflationary increases and to assist with purchases over the next year and years to come, an additional $4.09 was requested but denied. There are numerous skills and resources that would assist administration in meeting the requirements and ultimately the expectations of council and residents. These requirements were denied, which would have resulted in an increase of an additional $12.27 per month. So council actually reduced the proposed budget by $35.80 per month. The town has hundreds of millions of dollars in assets which depreciate, must be replaced at some point. The town is going to be here a long time, and so these projects need to be planned and have funding in place to address. The capital budget is where the big one-time expenditures occur. The town is in a catch-up mode on our capital requirements. As noted several times already, having plans in place that document each asset's condition, as well as replacement schedule and cost to replace, has not been prepared. It is very evident, however, that many of our town assets are past their age life, and several others are nearing the end of their life or require significant upgrades. Roads are a prime example. Many require repaving. One sign of deferred maintenance is when the pavement has several cracks in it in an isolated area. This typically means the subsurface has been compromised, typically by water. This means that the subsurface requires repair, which is much more expensive than a simple resurfacing. The cost to repave is about $75 per square meter. The cost to repair the supporting infrastructure and the pavement is $140. This basically means we can all have good quality pavement throughout the town for relatively the same price as letting it deteriorate. Having a good plan also helps reduce overall long-term costs. For example, if one knows we are going to replace a water main, rather than simply repaving a 10-foot strip, it is likely most cost-effective to redo it all at once, especially if the pavement is near the end of its life. To do this requires planning and funding. Ideally, a plan should be at least 10 years and preferably 20. Having an idea of the long-term financial expenditures, what they look like, provides a forecast to which informed decisions can be made. If one knows that there's potentially $50 or $60 million of improvements that must be made in about 7 years, short-term budget decisions may be different. The current water situation is a prime example of this. If information was prepared and presented earlier, maybe rates would have increased earlier and more gradually. We may have also started to replace infrastructure during times when costs were 50 to 100% less expensive. I am committed to developing these plans and providing council and the public with the information that will enable all of us to see the true financial picture in an open and transparent manner. Some information may be positive and others negative, but being transparent, in my opinion, is administration's job. My goal is to then clearly illustrate and communicate plans, including which streets are planned to be repaved over the next 5 years, so residents can see where their tax dollars are going. We are a few years away from having good plans and the financial capacity to resource, but it is what needs to be done and is something you as residents and business owners deserve. Borrowing is a standard practice when there are required upgrades that enhance the service. For example, the water treatment plant. It is a new system and is an upgrade to which current and future residents will enjoy. As a result, borrowing for these upgrades is a standard practice. The same would hold true if a new amenity was built, something like an aquatic center. This process is in effect supported by the province in that they control the amount of debt municipalities can have. It would be impossible to repair and replace all existing infrastructure through borrowing under the current legislation. As mentioned before, we are all somewhat aware of that we have a lot of assets. I'm not going to go through them, but I think everybody knows there's a lot. And yeah, we need to inventory all of them. Now, council needs to balance all the needs and wants while looking at the financial status, providing a foundation to which businesses flourish and residents have the services they need is obviously something administration and council considers. Even having all the plans in place, a plan is a plan. Plans change. Reality sets in and decisions have to be made on what is ultimately the highest of priorities. Other pressures set in and new information becomes available. Sometimes there are legislation changes that can alter a plan. Bottom line is that information is important. It allows for educated and informed decision-making. Will information change over time? Yes. And will decisions change over time? Yes. Will we ever have enough data and enough funding to be perfect? No. But we will improve. Every one of the capital projects within the budget documents that is in the current year has an accompanying report which explains the project. Future years, years 2 to 5, have projects identified within a financial plan, but have no accompanying reports and are there for placeholders. For the most part, the future projects will not proceed until debated in the upcoming budget cycle. There are risks with deferring capital budget items. Plans and studies help with decision-making, and informed decision is always better than hypothetical. They are always typically required for grant applications. Some projects are funded by grants, whereby there are deadlines on the use of the funding. If projects are not completed within those deadlines, the funding can be revoked. It costs money to have shovel-ready projects, which may not come to fruition for several years. Occasionally, larger grants come available, whereby only those that are shovel-ready are considered. This requires upfront funding. Cutting these projects could mean the loss of substantial funding opportunities. Another issue is that some projects are linked to previous and/or future projects. Therefore, delaying one project can have further-reaching ramifications. On a bit of a side note, some people criticize the cost of projects. Our projects go out for competitive bids. These bids are graded and the best proponent is awarded the contract. Awarding large-scale projects without a bidding process in most situations is illegal. An abundance of information has been presented to Council on Water over the past year, and I do encourage people to review this material and watch the presentations given at Council meetings. As a result, I'm only going to provide a very basic information regarding water and sewer. Regarding water, there are two systems: our agricultural irrigation system, which are north and south of town, and our domestic water system, which also serves some properties north and south of town, as well as parts of OIB development. Agricultural system has 2 water intakes from the lake. The system was mostly constructed in the 1960s, and limited maintenance has been completed. There are about 42 kilometers of pipe. No asset management plan has been completed, and significant funding will be required to repair this system. The system was transferred to the town in 1990. This water is on a permanent boil water notice. About 58% of the pipes are beyond their forecasted life expectancy. The domestic water system has about 77 kilometers of pipe, of which about 24 kilometers is approaching or past its life expectancy. Other assets include about 272 fire hydrants, and we also have 4 reservoirs. We have 6 groundwater wells and have drilled a couple more, and they do have production capability. Even if all of our wells producing, the demand exceeds the production on many occasions. Typically, this occurs between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the summer months, which is due to irrigation. It is also important to note that the chemical makeup of our water is unique and is very difficult to treat. Water meters are coming and installation will start this year. The billing system is going to change and there will be taken off the tax notice. The fee structure, as I indicated before, still has not been determined. Other things we know is that the current well water quality is deteriorating fairly rapidly. We currently have a portable plant on one of the wells to determine how the water can be treated. If it is too costly to treat, we may need to switch to building a water plant that will treat lake water rather than well water. We hope to have a better understanding of our options in about 2 months. We have included experts to assist with this testing, which include the UBC and Réseau Water, which are known as the water experts in BC and across Canada. We are also in constant discussions with the provincial government. The plan is to complete a water treatment plant by 2028. Within our financial plan, we have incorporated an amount that will help replace our expired infrastructure. Not included in the rates are required amounts for smaller pipes that are 6 inches, nor have we incorporated any inflationary costs, nor have we put in any costs associated with the agricultural irrigation system. Obviously, even though a plan has been developed, there is significant risk embedded in the plan. The water utility is a separate budget and should be at least cost recovery, meaning user pay. This is more emphasized by the fact that 10% of the users do not live in the town's boundaries. Some are suggesting that general grant funding should go towards water improvements. Is this something that should occur, especially considering some users are outside the municipality? Also, some properties don't pay property taxes, but pay utilities. Should the tax base or grant funding further subsidize these entities? These are some questions that we need to answer. Much discussion has also occurred on deferring capital projects. This can be done. However, as illustrated, we have a lot of expired assets. The sewer system, for the most part, was initially installed in the 1960s with minor expansions in the 70s, 90s, and early 2000s. A sewer expansion to the north was completed in 2010. We replaced the pump station in 2019. So although some work has recently been completed, much of the system is dated like our water system. A wastewater management plan, including an asset management plan, was completed in 2023. Like water, there's a lot of assets, and a lot of them are underground. We've got 51 kilometers of pipes, 18 additional kilometers of force mains, 21 pump stations, and each one of those pump stations, I think, is worth somewhere around $1 million. So a lot of assets, and as with water, about 10% of our accounts are outside the town boundaries. So boring, where are we at today? Currently, the town owes about $9.6 million. The fire hall has about another $4.9 million, matures in 2042. 87th, pardon me, still owes $86,000, matures in 2030. Cottonwood Drive, still $171,000, expires in about a decade. The sewer main, about $3 million, expires in 2039. The water twinning, 1.4, and expires in about another 20 years. Unfortunately, the vast majority of our mortgage payments are with us for another 10 to 25 years. This impacts our ability for future projects. The town can only borrow for 5 to 10-year terms. The risk associated with this is that even when the term comes due for renewal on a 20 or 30-year mortgage, an increase in interest rates means the increased interest payment must come from taxes or utilities. In situations where they go down, this of course would be a benefit, but it is a risk. The province also dictates how much borrowing a municipality can do. Using our 2023 approved budget, we are legally able to borrow approximately $28 million more than we have already. To put it in perspective, the cost to borrow $1 million using an interest rate of 4.35% over a 20-year amortization period would result in $870,000 in interest. The cost to a typical residence is about $19.24. Sewer would be about $13.45, and or sewer rates would be about $12.74. So based on the existing 5-year financial plan, $44.4 million is a plan to be borrowed. Using the same interest rates and amortization, the interest costs that we will be paying over the 20 years is $38.6 million. Typical cost to residents is $854 per year. If the 5-year financial plan capital expenditures proceeded and there was no budget increase or utility fee increase, an additional $41.8 million would need to be borrowed. Using the same interest rates and amortization, we'd be paying an additional $36.6 million in interest. The cost of this would be an additional $804 per year on the resident. Based on the existing 5-year financial plan, if the overall increase is only 20%, we would need to borrow for utilities alone an additional $22.8 million. Using the same interest rates, another $19.9 million in interest. So sewer rates per year would be impacted $128, water $169. Again, we're doing a prorated here because there's different components to the water and sewer. So a total of almost $300 per year. However, and I know this is a bit of a stretch, but if the rates stay the same, our water and sewer is a 20-year plan that we're working towards. If we didn't increase the rates anymore over that 20-year period, we'd actually have to borrow an additional $56 million. Sewer rates would increase another $73. Water would increase an additional $646, so for a total of $719. So in essence, if we don't increase rates, the rates will be the same with borrowing. So basically, they'll be paying the same, but we'll have an additional $80 million in debt. The standard practice is to borrow for upgrades, not replacement of existing assets. Our plan is to attempt to proceed with this practice, pay cash for replacement and borrow for enhancement, like a water plant. Not doing so will put us over the debt limit. It is important to note that the 5-year plan is a plan, and there will be changes. Of special note, there was no inflation incorporated in the asset management plans for water and sewer. This does mean numbers within the 5-year financial plan will change. We currently have $60 million in capital expenditures for those 2 utilities. This means there's still significant risk with the plan, and it's still underfunded. Simply stated, over the next few years, projects will be identified and budgeted for based on an urgency and its critical nature. There are those that want to delay or replace X expenditure, and they will replace it with Y expenditure. In the end, all the projects are required, and the timing of various purchases can be criticized, such as backup generators or whatever. But based on availability, the timing, risk, purchasing in bulk, decisions need to be made, and we must proceed with some of the fixes. It is not going to get easier, and we need to start someplace. The budget process started earlier than normal this year for a couple of reasons. The first is that it was anticipated that the increase was going to be significant due to the new information that was prepared and presented to council through the water and sewer plans. Passing a budget early, basically 4 to 5 months ahead of schedule, was intended to provide property owners with additional time to prepare for the increase. Passing a budget early also enabled administration to issue RFP or contracts earlier than other municipalities, which would provide a greater chance of more competitive bids. We were hoping for savings in the tens to the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The following 3 slides illustrate the chronological series of events and publications leading up to passing of the budget. It is important to note that the public had the opportunity to provide comments right up until the time that the budget was passed. So where are we at today? On December 12th, notice motion to rescind 3rd reading was made. January 9th, motion to rescind 3rd reading was approved, and here we are today. We're anticipating further budget deliberations will occur in mid-February, and the budget will likely be approved sometime in March. There are several budget improvements that can occur, some of which the public has identified. Now, so I'm just going to touch on a few of these. I know we weren't perfect, and there's, again, lots of opportunities for improvement. Obviously, communication and a feedback mechanism. I don't have to go into that too much more. 10-year capital plans allow for better planning and improved transparency. Improved information for decision-making is critical in the budget process. Strategic maintenance and replacement of assets get to a point where we are proactive rather than reactive. Sufficient reserves are important, gives us the ability to apply for grants when they become available. think it's always good investment if you can get 50% or 70% of a project granted. Having the fiscal depth to partner when appropriate. Province paving highways in the area. We had a perfect opportunity here this past summer. There was an asphalt plant right on our boundary. If we would have had some funding available and projects prepared, we could have saved a significant amount of money on transportation costs of asphalt because the plant was right on our doorstep. But having funding will allow us to take advantage of things like that. And obviously, we've got to review revenue opportunities, such as user fees for things like recreation and developer costs. Many of our fees appear to be low in comparison to some municipalities. Our review is planned for this year. The development contribution costs need to be updated. Nobody, including myself, wants to pay more taxes or utility increases. Having said that, where do we stand compared to others? It is important to note that every municipality is different and have unique challenges.
Continue. Please allow the speaker to continue. Do not interrupt. Thank you.
Regardless, all municipalities have standard services that they have to provide. And so averages help to provide an indication of what typical is and where we should likely be. When we compare the property tax and utility tax bill in the average home in each community, Osoyoos is very competitive to communities in the valley. In fact, in 2023, we're $1,250 less than the average. If we would have been the average for the past 10 years, we've had more than $51 million saved. If we would have been the average for the last 20 years, we'd have $102 million saved. Another good comparison is to use the other 13 resort municipalities in BC. These municipalities experience similar pressures in that their population swells, something significantly more than their resident population, their property tax base. Using these comparators, we are more than $1,600 less than the average. If we had been the average for the last 10 years, we would have had an excess of $65 million. If we had been on the average for the last 20 years, we would have had $131 million saved. So going to some of the general theme questions. Make tourists pay for infrastructure. Municipalities do not have the authority to apply an additional tax on tourists. Council has and is lobbying the provincial government to increase resort funding and to provide additional flexibility in existing grants. Some are suggesting that rental accommodations pay for the majority of our water and sewer upgrades. It is true that tourists cost our local taxpayers and utility users money. Currently, hotels pay the same rate per room as a single-family home. So if a hotel has 50 suites, they pay 50 times that of a house. Some have suggested that we sell off some land for development, such as the golf course or a portion of it, or possibly Desert Park. Although the property is owned by the town, there is a reverter clause on title. This basically means that it is our property as long as it remains and is used for recreation. If the province would allow another use other than recreation, such as residential development, the town would need to compensate the province. So there may be some revenue opportunities available, but they are not exorbitant amounts. Borrow more or delay projects. The increase in borrowing is increasing by about 17 million in utilities alone over the next 5 years. If the overall utilities and property tax increases drop to 20%, there are no further increases, and there's no further increases, borrowing would need to go to 80 million over the next 20 years. I realize this isn't a realistic option, but it provides some context as to what we are dealing with. On top of this, there is a risk, as explained before with the utilities, that we haven't incorporated a lot of our costs, the 6-inch pipes, the irrigation system, and we haven't included an inflationary costs within our budget. Reducing the funding allocated to plans. Planning projects proactively produce long-term cost savings. For example, if a water pipe is replaced, would it be more economical to align a street repaving project at the same time rather than patch a 10-foot strip where the pavement was renewed? Asset management plans for transportation, recreation, and buildings and the irrigation systems are a must for not only sound financial management, but grants. It is important to note that costs attributable to these plans come from cost manuals that are used by those within industry. They're not made-up numbers. Increased developer cost charges or fees or leases and fines. As to fines, many were adjusted in 2023 and others are being adjusted as we speak. Increasing fees associated with development is an option and is something the administration is currently working on. Changes are planned to be implemented in 2 phases. One's proposed will be coming to council shortly, and a more thorough review will occur over the next 12 to 18 months. Fees for recreation use, etc., are planned to be reviewed over the next year. Administration is also planning to bring forward a report that illustrates all of our leases, which could change how we look at leases in the future. A line-by-line review of the budget and make cuts. The operating budget reflects existing service levels. As indicated previously, the community would need to identify which services they would like reduced. When there are surpluses, these go directly into the reserves, which can be spent on capital projects, which, as we all know, the list far exceeds current reserves. Reducing the PSAB requirement, this can be done, but did we learn anything from the past? If we would have completed water and sewer master plans earlier, would we be in the same position? Or would we have looked at it from an RRSP perspective and started to invest earlier? As stated previously, if we would have been an average for the past 20 years, we'd have $130 million. Cut the reserves, contingencies, etc. More reports are coming. Transportation, recreation, and buildings. We can all see the state of this infrastructure. The sooner we start putting money aside, the sooner we can start renewal on roads, streetlights, etc. On the capital budget side, each individual item has a report associated with it. These can be reviewed and some pushed back, although there are consequences. Have flexibility to apply for matching grants makes financial sense. For example, if a grant becomes available in water conservation, which could assist in reducing the town's usage for watering in our parks, which was planned 3 years out, but for repair and replacement, would it likely be advantageous to apply for a grant and move the project up, even if the grant only paid for 50% of the cost? I think it would. Communication officer. This position could assist with additional communications, could improve the website, additional budget. Communicate.
Excuse me, could you please let the speaker speak? You have an opportunity to ask questions after.
There are other things that the position could do. Review bylaws, policies, procedures, correspondence, internal communications, etc. Can this be cut? Yes. But the result will be that there will be little change in communications, which many are upset with. I believe the information provided illustrates that there are options, but the infrastructure deficit and requirement to address is well documented. Can items be pushed back? Yes. Can some things be cut? Yes. But the vast majority cannot. Simply delaying is only going to cost everyone more. The exact amount required to fund our infrastructure issues will still fluctuate over time, but the evidence is clear in that increases are required. One option that is available is extending the tax and utility payment deadline on a portion of the bill. This in effect would provide additional time to save for the tax increase and or utility increase. Extending the payment deadline on a portion of the utility and their property tax bill to September, November, December does impact the town's bottom line marginally, but could be a compromise to those that require additional time. So what are the next steps? We're going to continue with today, and administration and council are going to listen to the public presentations. Administration will provide responses to the questions received at a later date. The public can submit additional material to the town. Information received by the town addressed to council is always forwarded to council, and ultimately council will debate the budget and approve. So thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Risling. We think that has answered a lot of the questions that has been given. Excuse me. Those were the questions that were answered, that were asked in the submissions that were made. And thank you, Mr. Risley, for going through all of those and giving some information. So we're now going to go on to present correspondence and information. And I note that there were 46 correspondences that have been received by the town. And those are listed on the agenda. They're also included in your package that you picked up at the door. And all of those are in there. So we will now move on to the public presentations. And before we start at the microphone, I will ask Corey to give us some hints on how to do this well. Thank you, Corey. Thank you. So the microphone is up at the front here, and this wants to have been on the agenda tonight. And when you come up to the microphone, state your name so that people can follow along. We do the list here. And would you, if you're number 2 or number 3, would you please get in line so that you'd come up to the microphone after the other speaker? Thank you very much. We'll start with speaker number 1.
Test, can everybody hear me back there? Is this okay? Yeah? Okay. Mistake by letting me up here tonight. So here goes the phone 3 minutes. First of all, there was a comment made Brooks about how to bring something for the record. About a year and a half during the election, me and 2 other councillors that are sitting right now brought some engineers in from a wastewater management company. They said that they could benefit our town with sewage treatment plant for about $20. About a year later, a notification went out from town, a full notification from operations, suggested $40 million and an increase of $300,000 in operating costs. That doubled the amount that we required engineers. So let's visit town. But we can't be calling I can't call the kettle black. We have to be honest about that. That's disingenuous. Which gets me to the budget. What I'm not hearing about is public-private partnerships and service agreements. There's better ways to do this economic time to tax the hell out of 40% in record inflation in this entity of what we're going into. There's another, we could do it off the books. Right now, we spend $50 each budget in odor reducing enzymes, assisting sewage. If we technology at about 20 million, and we had the private partner off the books at a rate of about $1 million, we need to be jacking the projects with concepts do not have fleshed out. We know where, and we don't know what they're ultimately going to cost. This is something that I'm talking about is two-way street, and if we're here tonight, the budget was passed and it was rescinded. To be honest, it makes me and I think all here feel both helpless and unhopeful. So what I see is I'd like to see my dialogue between town council and the community, but I'd like to pose a suggestion. Harness some of all of these computers and all of this brain power in this audience and all of this incredible intellect that we have to more people, and let's get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks for allowing me to speak. All right. 16 years as manager of the White Rock Utilities Limited. We supplied the city of White Rock with a domestic water fire service for 16 years on my term, and we serviced 20,000 people. We did our own construction, our own maintenance, and all the work was done through the system collect for the water rates. And so that's how just earlier on this month, I received a copy of the engineering report from True Engineering, and I did a report on it. I gave it to councillors. I haven't heard anything back from the councillor, but I know he's been very But the problem is that if the water system isn't looked after, you're going to be in really serious trouble. Really serious trouble. There's all kinds of problems with the water system. Your capacity, and we had a ratio. White, we normally service 20,000 people, but then we ended up in the summertime because we're a beach area. We had up to another 15,000 people occasions, and so we had to put that. Here, that you fortunately, it looks like what's happened here is that things have been coasting along for time, and then suddenly there's a problem that has arisen. That engineering report said that if we don't have another well in operation by this summer, and we get a warm summer like we had last year, and it's predicted to be warmer, we're going to be in. So I suggest that whatever you do, the water system first. With it, you're dead. You won't have a municipality. You won't have to draw the tourists. You'll just have a lake, not it. So I would suggest that take a really serious look at the water situation. I'm not going to speak on anything else because that's not my expertise, but I spent 16 years looking at this water system, and we supplied 20,000 people. Should that hard to supply 5,000 people, or
My name is Linda Gibby, and I've been a resident of Osoyoos for 9 years. I believe our council did a job. They've put the recommendation of true engineering, works management, and the CA of the community. In fact, recent decisions regarding tax increases show an almost complete disregard of the community. Comments made by the CA some members show a lack of respect for community members and disregard for the significant resources in our community. New poll finds 59% of their financial situation causing anxiety. 55% are concerned about their ability to repay debts. According to our CAO, our tax increases are mere dollars a day. Our personal monthly deductions have from $490 to $760 a month. That's of it. As senior fixed incomes, I have not, will I receive a 40 income. The total amount of the tax increase is not even known, and yet deductions are already being taken from our account. Additionally, include the cost of borrowing money for future debts is huge. Mostly ethical. The callous decision to collect all in 1 year is just another indication of council's lack of awareness of affordability and the disregard for the welfare of the community. How is it possible that council and the mayor can approve such an exorbitant increase? Our mayor downplayed the increase by stating that people don't like change and no one likes increase in taxes. Did one discuss that this is a crippling increase for the businesses and the citizens of Osoyoos? What happens to the citizens, businesses already under pressure? All I heard was the statement of the CEO saying that there will be further increases. There seems to be an attitude that will object for a while and then we'll move on. Our community, like the rest of BC, is suffering from affordability issues. Our elected officials are compounding this with such an exorbitant hit-making tax increase. And is aware that infrastructure issues must be addressed. Council must put the welfare of the community and go back with the intent of redoing the budget and bringing forth a reasonable tax increase. This meeting to me is very worrisome because it never should have happened. The community has made its wishes abundantly clear and has brought forth many suggestions as to how to address water and sewer problems. I wonder if today's meeting is just a way of placating the very angry and concerned citizens of the community. Starting in August, people voiced their concerns and gave their suggestions. If these were not
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dylan Sherhan, and at 10 McIntosh Court is where my family and I have paid taxes since 1973, where we've watched this town government grow from some old timers who just got stuff done to an exponentially expanding, all-consuming parasite that it is today. Now, I'm here to represent the 21st century. I'm a software developer in decentralized finance, and I'm educated in economics and physics. And I don't trust the numbers that this government has given us in this budget. That is the problem, a problem of trust of the numbers. And as evidence of this, I would like to direct your attention to page 56 of the budget, where we have $30,000 for a sidewalk inspection. Well, I say the bureaucracy gives you numbers and you just rubber stamp it. You're not an expert in nothing. And I condemn this entire budget. And to organize a solution to this problem as a backup plan in case council doesn't, I hereby announce the formation of the Osoyoos Taxpayers Party with the mission to organize a replacement for this council with a new vision for the 21st century. To divide this government into its constituent parts. And here's my first idea. First, who would invest a single cent in a waterworks public utility company that had this council as its board of directors? Now, I'm not Warren Buffett, but I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So maybe that's the problem, but also the solution. Here's an old school Canadian idea. We spin off the waterworks business, which is a business, into its own public company. The board of directors of this company would be actual engineers and plumbers who know what they're talking about and can think ahead and can actually get stuff done. Shares of this company would be distributed to the public, to water customers themselves on a pro rata basis. Then if anything goes wrong, we can hold an emergency shareholders meeting and immediately elect new directors to fix the problem without going through this antiquated nonsense that we're going through now. This would also put the whole problem out of council's hair. This system has been used to success elsewhere. Now, who would prefer to own shares in a system like that rather than being chained to the commie thing that we got going on now? So I council consider creative ideas, but in any case, I'll be out in the hall.
Thank you.
Miller, and I live in Osoyoos. My wife and I have been residents of Osoyoos for the past 25 years and love living here. I've been involved in the community in many ways. One was serving on town council for 6 years. I follow council's work by reading agendas, reports, and emails, and helps keep me abreast of our local government and what is happening in our community. In the fall of 2023, you, the mayor, council, town staff, and contracted staff worked together on a 5-year plan and budget for 24. The result was a completed budget showing a total increase of 13.6% in municipal taxes and 25.7% increase in utility user taxes for a total of 39%. This was an exorbitant amount, which you then voted and passed unanimously. The result, the citizens of Osoyoos became vocal over their objection to these increases. What did you do? Basically, nothing. Until the pressure was so great, you rescinded your vote, and here we are tonight. Your water, yes, water should be a priority, but a 146% increase? In our case, we have received $9 million already from the province to improve our system. Further investigation reveals another 2.5 million is available for this purpose as well. I also understand there may be $6 million in reserves that could be tapped in over time. Certainly a good start in getting the problem fixed with no great increase. The sewer of a 117% increase is another problem. A repair of cell 2 and a regular maintenance could mean our system would be useful for years to come, giving us time to plan and seek funding for an upgraded system. These are but a few of the things I am aware of that could reduce our tax burden. When the election was held in 22, the citizens of Osoyoos expected this council to be aware of their needs and meet them in a fiscally responsible way. When the 39% increase was indicated, it should have been your signal to act, as it was beyond the means of this community. The town of Osoyoos could not afford your Cadillac budget. Why didn't you act? Fortunately, it is not too late for you, the mayor, council, and town staff to begin new deliberations and find ways to retool this budget. Take another look at each line. Identify the needs versus wants. Yes, sacrifices will have.
Thank you.
My name is Barry Romanko, and for 11 years, I proudly served as CAO, Osoyoos CAO, working under the direction of 4 councils and working with staff who were committed to making this community a social and economic success. Here are 5 of my community budgeting and governance concerns. 1, councils decide and defend approach to governance. Given the historically large tax increase and policy changes, this type of meeting needed to be held in September with an open-minded council that was truly committed to consultation instead of presenting the final step budget. My fear is actions from September to now have made a budget content and approval process very personal and confrontational instead of professional. The community's confidence and trust in council and administration is totally eroded. Number 2, asset management plan implementation is a driver of the huge increases in taxes. These plans are a needed guide for the community, but the strategies and actions to achieve results need to reflect the community's ability to pay over a reasonable period of time. Council's support of short-term plan implementation has pulled council away from making thoughtful decisions. In the end, our community is not about pipes, it's about people. Number 3, staff-council relations. Council says they are not experts and they have to trust the advice to them by expert staff. However, council's blind trust of administration is not a healthy community decision-making environment. A blind trust relationship between council, staff, and experts has effectively neutralized council. We need a council willing to challenge the experts to develop an affordable path to our needed improvements instead of the currently chosen easy path of inflicting historically absurd tax increases. 4, taxing policy changes. New policies were implemented to collect borrowing charges on projects that have not been received electoral approval, and charging new tax rates in December before council approved final mill rates and tax rates. I consulted CEOs in this province. They were shocked and questioned the legality and the ethics of these policies. Why did our council approve these new tax and borrowing collection policies? 5, questionable project approval and use of grant funds. I have no time to mention all the questionable decisions. However, I will say we are being misled that we need these large tax increases to get our needed water and sewer improvements. In closing, will council take this budget to referendum? The tax increase in my annual bill is equal to the annual borrowing costs on 35 fire halls or 100 museums or 4 swimming pools. Let the council, let the community decide if the significant financial hardships and the direction is what the community supports.
Great turnout, folks. Nice to see the entire township here. To start, I'm very disappointed in the actions of the council and the mayor. You hide behind your thrones. That's not what this is about. Let's talk about Johnny, Councillor Johnny, attacking JF. JF, who brought millions of dollars into our.
Excuse
town.
me, I don't think that you, please do not attack people personally. Please give your, no, that is not fair. That is inappropriate.
What are bylaws? We have a bylaw department. Right now, 2, you're increasing it to 6. None of the current bylaws on the books are being enforced. None. Let's talk about you, Mayor McCortoff. How's Frank doing? Firework Frank, the one that you terminated. How's he doing? How about, let's talk about our water. Our water is a mess. Our financial numbers are a mess. These numbers have been present for years, yet all of a sudden you hit us this year with tax increases which are totally unreasonable, especially for the seniors that are on fixed incomes. I listened to the numbers from our financial chief officer, and it's just rhetoric. I'm sorry, it's a pile of numbers. Numbers can be cooked, numbers can do anything. You're not listening to the people, you haven't been. You were supposed to move the council meetings from afternoons till evenings because most of the people can't come. But no, you still stay at the 1 o'clock council meeting. Why? Why? No answer, right? I have a couple of solutions. I'm tired of paying for water for 600 homes outside of the township. If we're going to be taxed, they should be taxed double what we're being taxed. Also, there should be an immediate water tax on all the hotel guests, motel guests, $40 per person per visit going directly into the town coffers. If you want to collect money, let's collect it off the people that are coming to visit us, not take it out of our pockets. I don't know. I'm as frustrated as everyone. I know you're elected, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we're getting our money's worth. Thank you very much.
My name's Birgit Arnstein. I've been in Osoyoos for a homeowner in Osoyoos since 2008. I've seen our population increase, both the permanent residents as well as the vacationers. And I've also seen changes in the town of Osoyoos from the staff, the CAOs, department heads, mayors, and councils. I've followed the town and council activities over the years, and I have a fair understanding of how town governance works. I'm not thrilled with the increase of my taxes. I too am a senior citizen. But as a citizen community, I understand that structure must be maintained and upgraded as necessary. It is unfortunate that previous administrations, mayors and councils and CAOs had not developed an adequate contingency fund to incrementally increase our taxes slightly over the years to cover maintenance and upgrades to our water and sewage system. That said, the time has come to address these needs. I often see people on social media complaining about brown water or disagreeable smells from our sewage treatment site. Waste management systems, wells, and pipes must be maintained and upgraded from time to time. Indeed, Kelly McDonald's very sobering annual water report highlights the pressing need for increased funds. I'd recommend everyone watch that. You can go on the town site and see what Kelly McDonald had to say. We must resolve these problems now, as they have serious health implications. This cannot wait. With the increase in permanent residents, visitors, and increased agricultural usage, our systems are being overloaded. They need to be fixed now, and we cannot wait, and we cannot put it off. I too find paying my taxes has been difficult at times. I know that they pay for schools, hospitals, roads, etc. Our town provides clean water, sewage, garbage, snow removal, parks, and so much more. Yes, the tax increase is high, but we must pay for services that we need and enjoy. This is for the town welfare of our community. I believe the work of Mr. Riesling and his staff in identifying the pressing town needs and presenting them to mayor and council are to be commended. These are not popular decisions, but they must be made. I'm quite saddened by the style of opposition to this situation. Our lovely, generally friendly town has become so divided. Yes, one can be opposed to tax.
Thank you.
My name is Neil McLean. I'm a retired senior capital advisor from the federal government, and I enjoy 12 months of occupancy in the beautiful town of Osoyoos. I became concerned when I started to hear rumblings over the internet and in the grocery store, etc., regarding the possibility of a 39% increase year over year in my taxes. I was quite shocked, so I immediately reviewed the 2024 and 2023 five-year capital plans and looked at the difference between the two. And yes, it did in fact confirm a 39% increase in residential taxes year over year. So towards that end, I also noted upon reviewing the files that council had confirmed that the dramatic increase year over year was due to their poor capital planning in prior years. There was insufficient funding set aside to cover the actual cost of maintaining, repairing, and operating the infrastructure that we all enjoy. The only issue that I would focus on personally is, do we actually have an accurate listing of the user group? We talk about a population of 5,525 in a resort community, but in fact, it's been touted as being increased by a factor of as much as 500–600% in the summer, and I don't think that accommodates the snowbirds that we get here in the winter from colder parts of BC. Suffice to say that we have a dramatic fluctuation in the overall population in Osoyoos. The question I have is, what is the design population used to size infrastructure, water treatment, sewer, water? And towards that end, I would also ask the council consider potential user groups that would include using treated water for irrigation. I think that there is a factor there. There is a user group. How about illegal suites? How about bed and breakfasts? How about the hotel? We've been assured that the hotels, the beds are counted and each bed is treated as a residence. Is that in fact true? And does it in fact accommodate all seasonal beds? Towards that end, 15 seconds, I'll wrap up and let other people speak on the issue. Not impressed, council.
Good evening. My name is Ron Palmer. My wife and I are residents of Osoyoos. We moved here last summer. I have a 40-year background in financial risk management, and I was going to speak extensively on that tonight. Well, 3 minutes, not extensively. But Mr. Rissling made my point when he said there is significant risk in the 5-year plan and in the budget. What that means is that I have been involved in the preparation of literally thousands of financial forward-looking documents over the years. And there are two immutable facts about these documents. Firstly, they're almost always written through an optimistic lens. And secondly, they are almost never achieved. I would ask you to ask yourself one question. When was the last time you heard of a budget for any public infrastructure project coming in under budget? What this means, and I'll move on to the next point that I have, is that the 39% we are talking about is the floor. It is not the ceiling. It will be much higher, I'm almost certain. Not having to continue to talk about that, I want to move on to my next subject, which is a pet peeve of mine, is this town's relationship with True Consulting. It seems to me that it is exceptionally close, perhaps unsafely so. What I want to point to is the Water Asset Management Plan. It was signed off by True Consulting on July 24th. I presume it was received by the town the same day. Yet by early September, it was already baked into the budget and the 5-year financial plan. My question is, and I also want to point out that this plan was written by an engineer in training, not a qualified engineer. I admit it was reviewed by Mr. Underwood, who I have had personal dealings with previously, but I question why you wouldn't get a second opinion. I wonder in that time frame if all of you even had time to read and digest the plan, and I wonder if there was any questions. It seems to me that you merely received the plan, accepted it, implemented it, and in doing so, have entrusted the financial future of this town to a consultancy firm that is not accountable to anybody in this room. And that is a real concern that I have. Thank you for your time.
Mayor McCortuff, councillors, good evening. My name is Cy Morselli, and I'm council watchdog many, many years. I have been here 43 years. The financial oversight is one of the most significant jobs mayors and councillors have as very clearly defined in the Municipal Act. Every chief administrative officers since I've been here and deputy chief administrative officer as well director of financial services, their duty and responsibility should be focused on giving honest, money-saving advice to the mayor and councillors with regard to all aspects of municipal governance, including regarding hiring senior staff and giving out prudent contracts to carefully chosen companies while making sure that those contracts follow the House rule. For the record, never was followed. The hiring of T.R. Underwood Engineering and Consulting Company from Kamloops, based on previous chief administrative officers' advice since 1997, actually much earlier, to up to date 2023, has cost the town taxpayers significant sums, millions of dollars. Please see page 7 of 11 of my letter. As a council watchdog, as a candidate for the seat on council 9 times, respectfully, I'm asking that the town of Osoyoos should hire full-time civil engineer on payroll. In my view, this will be as well taxpayers' view. Town of Osoyoos would save lots of taxpayers' money if only planning and development department and operational services department amalgamate or joins together. We don't need entity together as one entity. We, the taxpayers of Osoyoos, we don't need two full-time directors on full payroll. Town of Osoyoos has too many non-essential management positions. We are top-heavy with disproportionate amount of administration as opposed to frontline workers. I would like to see eliminated.
Thank you, Mr. Marcelli. No, I'm sorry, but the 3 minutes is up. The next speaker is not available to be here tonight, so we're on to Brian Bagnall. Thank you.
Mayor, council, and town administration, I want to thank you for being here. And Mr. Riesling, the CAO, made one heck of an effort to answer online questions. I mean, that couldn't have been easy. I'm going to change the direction of this because I'd like to see the town pull together. I've done a couple of presentations back in 2020, and again, I think it was 22, to do with building a building. So you look at what Dustin was talking about, a PPP, private-public partnership. I'm after a piece of property for a lease so that we can put a building on it that's a Cadillac. It'll be, and we'd pay for it. We only want the lease, so we'd build it. I want to build it up near the high school so the kids can play after school. Pickleball is where I'm at. I've got a pickleball academy and a federally incorporated nonprofit. I'll link for me. On the websites, et cetera. You'll see another presentation in when they do it, one for the parks. And I'm looking at trying to keep the kids up there at the high school. They can walk to the courts. We put 8 courts in. If you take a look and then put a building on it, which would be the Sprung building, which is like the Shawnigan Lake Boys School, their ice arena. It is a Cadillac. It's R30. So they don't, right now in the Gardell building, there's one up in Vernon. When they built that one up there, it's bringing in a lot of money and it's bringing people into town. They're moving there because of it. We have a fellow that used to live here at Oasis. He's a 4.0 plus. There aren't a lot of us around that are in that level, but he's got all of his buddies in Grand Forks moved. They've gone, they've left town. A lot of them have gone to Vernon. We need a magnet here. And I've got a school program. I'm trying to get into the schools, high school and the elementary school, because there is an open learning program for pickleball. And it is to help everybody. It is when you look at student, you teach roles, you teacher, then you're the student. It's very excellent. It's got psychomotor, affective, and cognitive domain checklists, et cetera. So I'm looking at, let's pull together with a project that brings us all together. That's all I've got to say, just like Jim, short.
Thank you.
My name is Barry Dewar. I've lived here for 43 years, I think it is. First thing, I'm sort of disappointed in this meeting. It went to great extent to get us to give you the information in advance. And instead we had to sit here and listen to a very long-winded presentation by the CAO, which could have been sent out on email for all of us to fully digest, because there's a lot of information in there, a lot of useless information, but a lot of information. And it would have been nice to get it in advance so that I could critique it on my own time instead of taking up 500 and some odd people's time. But my purpose is standing here right now is I asked 17 specific questions in my email. And my first question to you is am I going to get a response? The second question is, and not just me, but all 47, and I'm sure that there are many other identical requests. But I also wonder if you got legal advice before holding this meeting. Because if you don't give us answers, what are the legal ramifications to me as a taxpayer when you all get sued? Because I am concerned about that. But there's other questions in the budget, And like I said, I gave 17, way too many to discuss specifically. But in November, there was a meeting up at the industrial park. And in that meeting, someone suggested that there was a cheaper alternative for the water and sewer lines. Has that been investigated? If so, what's wrong with it? If it hasn't been investigated, it's almost been 2 months or month and a half. Why hasn't it been investigated? We pay people a lot of money, Jared and other people up at Public Works, that could go and meet with these people and find out if the plan works. Okay, if it doesn't work, then tell us. I personally don't know anything. So I know Dr. Chong was asked that specific question at the information center in November. Also, water metering. Is it really necessary? Like, we maybe get budgets or grants for covering some of our costs, but it's like my wife going or me going to the shop to buy things I don't need. Water metering, we are watering a desert. Why are we using more water than everywhere else? Because we have a desert we're watering with vineyards. Vineyards do not retain the moisture that was retained by the orchards that were here previously. And so we need to look at this as a bigger thing. And my last thing with time running out is manganese. Where does it come from? Why do we have a problem, but they don't have a problem elsewhere? If they have a problem elsewhere, and
Thank you.
Hello, Brian Karp, 34 years, warehouse manager at the P&E, which included all the purchasing for the grounds to keep it running on a daily basis. So I dealt with this kind of stuff, sort of. 5,500 people, but according to Wikipedia, we got 3,279 residences paying taxes. This budget's full of wants, not needs. True engineering. At the beginning of our present mayor's reign, it was around 100 and some odd $1,000. Now it's almost $1 million in consulting fees. Why? Don't we have people qualified? The costs to this town. Cemetery, $75,000 consulting fee. Most people get cremated now. What have we got a consulting fee for the cemetery? Veterans Way, what a fiasco, 550,000 plus probably. Park Place to the bridge. Yeah, it's a government grant. We could have used it somewhere else. Why rip up all that pavement and concrete, take it to the landfill, and then repave it and start all over again because somebody has a vision? We can't afford it. Let me see here. Pedestrian movement assessment. What are we assessing? People walking on the sidewalk? Where are they going? They're going to the pizza place. The transportation assessment, transportation master plan, transportation improvement. We have no heavy industry. We haven't got a lot of transportation problems. There's 2 roads in this town, 97 and 3. What are we assessing? We're not building overpasses, interchanges, no heavy industry in this town. Trucks. I know we need to replace equipment, but 320 grand, a lot of money. The trucks don't travel fast. They don't travel far. A lot of the time they go from town to the yard and back again. Half the time they're sitting while guys are doing their work. God bless our guys on the streets. So we don't really need to replace them. They can last. I know my last truck was 25 years old until it got totaled. Running out of time. As far as property taxes go, when I heard about this increase, I immediately went on MLS.ca and checked out every home from Summerland to here that was equivalent in value, and the rooms, the size of the lot, the whole schmear. I'm paying at least $700 or plus more than all these other homes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Karp, and that was my husband. He's very upset, and so am I. I feel that Canada's warmest welcome that I've heard from council members and from Rod Riesling has given us a cold shoulder. I looked at the 24 budget and I went pickleball, 250,000 for the elite few. That's not for the general population. I am one of the 43% of 65 plus in age. We live on a limited income. I have just figured out, I'm sorry, I'm so upset, that, where did I put it? The 2023 tax base we paid or were given was $4,529.30. You do an average on a $720,000 home. And that's not everybody. That's an average. But there's people like me out there that are at that point where this is not doable for us. So with an increased tax base of 13.6%, plus the user tax fee of 39.3%, that totals 52.9%. We have to move. He is upset. He has got his computer going and looking at MLS. And the other thing I really found upsetting is comparing Penticton to us on their tax base. They have amenities and they have the total population compared to us. So your numbers are wonky and you really need to readdress that, please. I have to say that it's somewhere on the website that I went into on osoyoos.ca for a rescinded budget that no longer was on the site, there was a $77,000 budget line for Destination Osoyoos. I went on to Destination Osoyoos and saw that that's referred to as a marketing organization. The residents of Osoyoos do not have any interest in marketing organizations, but the hotels, Walton's Beach, the board members on that, with the exception of Councillor Zerk, they're all in it for profit. But we're paying for them to have that, to use as a marketing tool for their own profit gains.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nathan Andres, if everybody doesn't know me. I've been in Osoyoos my whole life, plan to stay here my whole life. I see everybody in here is upset, frustrated, and not knowing what to do. We all voted you guys in to help us to make these decisions, and you're not listening to us. We have a big group of people in here that know a lot of things, and I don't see anybody listening to anybody in there. I sent in 7 questions. Not one of those questions was answered in that slideshow. And I can see 100 other ones that weren't answered that I read through. So I'm wondering if these questions will ever be answered and given back to us, because we don't get to see these answers, the decisions that you guys make, and it's really frustrating. Thank you.
My name is Michael Ryan, and I've lived here for about 21 years and was on council for 6 years. I want to thank council for holding this meeting, and I want to congratulate all those that put in written submissions. They were just excellent, and I'm glad we all got a copy of them here. We need to drastically reduce the proposed budget. It must concentrate on the essentials, no frills, wastewater treatment, and adequate quality and quantity of drinking water. These are the key issues. This is where we have to put our energy and our money. I've got some specific comments, and they don't relate to those two. But the one first is water metering. I understand that council made a promise to the provincial government that they would start this if we got our provincial grant. And I think we got it for, I don't know if it was for sewer or for water, but I wonder if the project can be done solely with the grant funds. If it can't, I'm sorry, I wonder if it, when we're going to start, we're going to start with our metering, and if it can be staged over multiple years. But we've talked about it for a long time, even when I was on council, but we haven't done anything. And now I understand there's a whole concern that that they're facing in Oliver about the manganese fouling up their meters. Main Street improvements from the Park Place to the bridge. I'm just wondering what portion of the projected cost is covered by the grant we received, because if we can't do the project with the grant money, I don't think we should do it at this point. How urgent is it to replace all the vehicles for the operations department? As someone said, you know, back and forth, locally driven, carefully driven. I don't know whether we need to do that. Can't we stagger that over several years? I think we should defer this cemetery needs assessment. My suggestion is that we encourage people to use their family plots for the interment of their cremated remains. And I don't know if it's permissible, but if it isn't, we should make it possible to bury two people in the same grave, one on top of the other. I don't think you have to be 6 feet under. We're talking about our DCC bylaws update, and we suggested that True Engineering would be the best source of expertise for this task. I'm not sure that's true, and I think that we should have a public request for proposals, but it's very important because when we talk about all the things we have to do and the kind of reserves that we need to build up, the development cost charges are a key way of doing that. In most municipalities.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Arlene Gregg. It was considered of you all, Madam Mayor and members of council, to invite and join us in a meeting in a room large enough to actually allow the public to attend comfortably. The sound system seems to work much better here also. Might I suggest you hold all council meetings at this location in future? As one of the tax base, the ones who pay your salaries, I refuse to attend meetings where I'm forced to stand for an unknown period of time. I referenced 2 items in this budget. First, the $100,000 per annum for an information officer. I would request that you cancel that position and hire 2 at $50,000 each to work 40 hours per week, sourcing any and all grants available. You were all communicating well when running for your position. Just keep it up. We don't need any extra people. Every dollar we can get from federal and provincial handouts will help get us out of this mess that some of you, as well as previous members of council, have permitted us to arrive at. My second area of concern is the $4 million+ for the water meters. If the water isn't cleaned up first, it will eat the water meters. Do we budget for $4 million+ every 7 or 8 years? We must learn to plan for better outcomes, not just keep paying and paying into a continual spiral of debt. Mayor and members of council, you have expertise residing in this town, decades of it. Start taking advantage of people's skills, knowledge, and years of work experience, not just their bank accounts. We have all invested time and money into our town. We all want it to succeed. The future can be brighter if we all work together. The ball is in your court.
I'm looking for Mr. Mayor. No? Then we'll go on to our next speaker, Tom Shields.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I've been listening to this and I kind of agree with what a lot of people are saying, that there's a lot of concern. And it all comes down to the sewer and the water concerns. And when this started back in 1976, it was planned, it was a test. And it was a test for a small area. We were about 1,750 people. And they put it in and they said there was room for expansion to Mayor Frost. Now, why they did this was because Oroville and the United States were concerned about the quality of water coming down. So they went along, and at that point in time, we came up with the test case. And the water system we put in was a water system designed to suit that type of people. The growth they talked about was doubling the population from 17 or 18 to around 3,500. They figured, because of history, that it took us 140 years to get to 1,750 people, that it would take us that long to get to around 3,500. And that didn't happen. We got there, and all of a sudden, we find out now that the system is just not working. And I guess it's because, folks, that I'm going to want to take this on about us and the irrigation, because I'm not one who buys into it. Our right now population is 52 to 5,500. It's not, folks. As you go right now, there's people in our hotels and our things, we're over 6,500. And in the summer, when they come in, everything's rented. Kids are here, and we are population at 15,000 or more, 56 seconds. So where we're at, we have to replace and do it fast. And we got to get some answers and get some money. You do have a way to do it. You can get some people primed up pretty quickly by saying, until we get our sewer and our water taken care of and know where we're going, we're going to stop building permits and development until we get that in place. And then take it to the federal and provincial governments, because, folks, as we've been sitting here, every one of these people coming and staying, and there's lots of them now, we see in the papers, 20 to 25,000 people on a weekend. It's the water that they are using that puts us in this problem. I would go back to the provincial government, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and the Environment, and say, let's get a solution and we'll get back to normal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of the people who have presented. We have been taking notes. Many people asked if we would answer their questions, and yes, we will. Is there a slide for next steps? Could you put it back up, please? The one that Mr. Risling had, or I can just read it off of here. No? What we said at the end was that we would look at next steps. Next steps will be that administration will address the additional questions and the things that have been mentioned tonight, and we will provide answers and more information on the budget to the public. We will have an open meeting of where we discuss the budget, because as you know, it's at third reading, it has not been passed. We will look at ways that we might be able to solve some of the problems and deal with some of the high taxes. That's all we can promise for now, but this will be happening very soon, and we will let everybody know. So thank you all for coming up tonight and for providing this information for us. Could I please have a motion to terminate the meeting? Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you.